Welcome to the first episode of Before the Candle Goes Out.
My name is Hannah.
And my name is Caitlin.
In this series, we will be discussing unsolved cases and the faces behind them that are often forgotten. While filming this series, we will be celebrating and remembering the life of each person, not just what happened to them.
Please join us while we bring light to their stories, one candle at a time.
Today's episode, we will be going over Marion Barter. She was a young teacher in Australia in 1997 that went missing. This one was a doozy. It took me a while to get all the information.
I know, you were glued in with your headphones.
We're gonna have a lot of stuff for you guys at the end because there's a phenomenal podcast that actually helped with the case. It helped, without this podcast, they would not have found half the information they have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And her daughter Sally did a ton of work, and we got in contact with Sally, got permission to do this case, and so we've got some stuff that Sally's been working on to discuss with you at the end regarding October 5th that are coming up, and we're actually wearing green to support Sally and her cause. Marion Barter, born October 3rd, 1945, in Sydney, Australia. She went missing on June 22nd, 1997. She was a wonderful teacher, a wonderful mother, and her life overall was a really good life. And what happened to her was tragic because there's a lot of stuff that happened that was mishandled terribly, and her daughter Sally has fought super hard to get to where they are in the case today. I mean, it's still unsolved. She was pronounced deceased, and we'll get to that by the inquest and everything that happened.
But she's still missing, correct?
The body has not been found. She has been pronounced deceased, but nobody knows what happened, where it happened, how it happened, none of that. I do want to give a shout out to
the
Lady Vanishes Podcast.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Yeah, that's where I got a lot of my information from. They delve into it greatly. I mean, this is going to be a little bit over an hour podcast, maybe an hour.
And is the Lady Vanishes, is that Sally's podcast?
So Sally was in it, Sally, they got interviews from Sally and things like that, but no. Okay. I believe the woman's name is Allison, and there's a gentleman she works with as well. We'll link that down below in wherever form, and it's on Spotify, that's where I listen to it. There is a podcast that Sally is a part of. It is the Missing Matter podcast, and that's also on Spotify, and she's going into stuff after the inquest in 2024 and the decision that was made, kind of where they're going now, what the research and everything that's happened after that with her mother's case, as well as representing other missing people. So I would give that podcast a listen because it is great. Marion, she was just a great person. She loved flowers and birthdays, celebrating people's birthdays. She had 3 other sisters, Deidre, Bronwyn, and Lee. Every interview that I listened to, they kind of just said the same thing. She was very eccentric. She was who she was, and you knew it right away. And her laugh made you smile. She loved designer clothes. She loved fancy things. She actually had her own dressmaker.
Nice.
So she had things made. And if you ever walked into her house, it was just filled with art and fine china and antiques, things that are hard to find. It was beautiful. And she wore her heart on her sleeve. Everybody said that. You knew exactly what she was feeling, what she was thinking. There was no secrets. Marion just kind of told you what was going on. And that's why what happened to her, really, everybody was shocked for a lot of reasons. She loved the theater, loved opera and music. She tried to bring that into her teaching. The kids loved her. She was actually a godmother to a lot of kids that she taught. She did out-of-box thinking when it came to teaching. If she could bring them to the beach, she wanted to. Really giving all of her energy into teaching. Sometimes her kids did feel, it's hard. It's your mom. You don't want to share your mom, and Sally had mentioned it. She gave her all to those kids. Sometimes it's hard to have a little bit left over. She was a single mom. She was overall just a good woman. The one thing that everybody did say that has to do with this case is she loved love. She wanted to be loved. She wanted to be in love. She wanted to love. She was trying to find her soulmate, trying to find somebody to love. So her first husband was Johnny Warren in 1967. From what Sally recalled, she was in love with him. He was a famous soccer player. They tried to have kids, but unfortunately they didn't get that chance to. Since he was a soccer player, he would go on tour a lot. She went on tour with him a couple of times in like Switzerland. And then on one of the tours, he wanted to rent the house out. Marion didn't want that, but he didn't want Marion to come with. He actually, from what has been said, he wanted to go on a break while he was on tour. And Marion definitely didn't want that.
So he wanted to rent the house that they shared out?
Yes, their house. That was part of it. There was a lot of interviews for it. They interviewed his best friend, Johnny's best friend. And there was actually, so he went on tour, and during that time, it was said that he wanted to go on a break, and Marion didn't want that. And ultimately, that's why. Like, he came back from tour, and he was just like, I think we should get a divorce. So they divorced 2 years later in 1969. But some people had said that Marion was cheating on him, having an affair while he was gone. It was clarified by Johnny's best friend that that was not true. Johnny, after he asked Marion for a divorce, called him right away and never mentioned anything of cheating. But it was just
I was gonna say that's a very wild accusation, considering she didn't want to go on a break. That doesn't sound like cheating behavior to me.
After that, she married Stuart Brown in 1977. They actually met a few years earlier, and they had 2 kids. They had Sally in 1973 and Owen in 1974. In 1975, they actually split up, and she moved to Queensland. Then Stuart's father ended up getting cancer, and she ended up moving back. They ended up getting back together, and then they got married in 1977. They divorced in 1979. And during that time, Stuart, he stated that Marion was violent, that she was cheating on him. However, they got a hold of Stuart's sister. She says the complete opposite. She says that Marion was never violent. One time, in fact, they were hanging out with Marion and the kids, and Marion had a black eye. She asked Marion what happened, and Marion had said that she slipped, but Stuart was asked about it from his sister, and he admitted that he hit her, but only because Marion hit him. They got divorced in 1979. She moved to Queensland with the kids.
Okay.
While she was there, she ended up going on a few dates with a man named Ray Barter. After a few dates, she told her kids that there was going to be a man living with them. They ended up getting married in 1985. Ray said lovely things about Mary. He said that she was kind and lovely, a little unusual. He also said that she was very holistic, had talked about wanting to join a community in Holland.
Like a neighborhood that only had holistic people in it?
Kind of. She had talked about it. It was a dream.
Gotcha.
They moved to New South Wales for a little bit. During that time, Marion was close to Owen, and he never said anything bad about Owen, just that Marion paid special attention to Owen, and because of that, Owen and Ray really didn't get along, to the point where there was an incident with mowing the lawn. They just really didn't see eye to eye. Eventually, it was said that Ray had said, it's either he goes or I go. Marion ended up sending Owen to go live with his dad. Stuart's recollection, and again, I want you to know that Stuart has already said that Marion was abusive and a cheater. When he went to go pick up Owen at the airport, he said that Owen was wearing shorts, and it was the dead of winter, and no socks, no shoes, and a shirt, and he was freezing, and Marion was yelling at him, and had yelled at him saying, she's sorry she didn't abort him. Not true. Marion loved her kids.
That Stuart guy really sounds like a character.
And he was mad that Sally got to stay and he didn't.
Yeah.
That kind of started to put a nick in their very close relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, like I said, they were married from 85 to 90. After they had divorced, both kids ended up living with their dad, and she moved back to Queensland. She taught 4th and 5th grade boys, and she really liked it a lot. And she was in a separate part of the school, so there was the main part of the school, and then she was over here with one more other teacher, but she did have a teacher's aide. And they also interviewed the teacher's aide. In that interview, the teacher's aide said that she was a great teacher, loved the kids, but she could notice, especially in 97, as the years went on, things became more stressful for Marion. When things were stressful and she was dealing with a stressful kid, that she would yell. You knew when she was having a bad day. There was one incident that did get reported that there was a kid that was acting out, and she had pulled him into the bathroom and spanked him, which was very out of character for her. And so you just started to notice from 1990 to 1997, she was going through a lot. I think what happened there is in 95, they had gotten a new principal. His name was Luke, and he was basically a bully. If you weren't on his good side, you knew it. And he was worse in person. He would bully you in group settings and in front of teachers, but especially it got worse if he called you in his office. So when he first got there, him and Marion seemed to get on good. She babysat for him, and so there was nothing of it. But after his first year there, 11 out of 17 teachers left. So they had to get new teachers. During that time, she was also seeing like the maintenance worker at the school, and the kids knew about that, people knew about that. They also interviewed him, and he had nice things to say about Marion. They ended up breaking up just because like he broke one of her china things, and she was really not happy about it. They got back together for a little bit, and then after they went to like a wedding, things just kind of faded out. There was another thing. She was talking to one of the boys' dads in the school, and he was a pilot. Nothing ever really happened with that because I don't think the feelings were reciprocated, but she did mention it to some people that like she liked him. There was an incident where the boy ran in and said her marrying his dad, because she also babysat him for a little bit, helping that dad out. She ended up having a bad day that day, but overall, again, Marion was still a really great teacher, to the point where in 1996 she ended up winning the Teacher's Excellency Award in Australia. Things were going on at the school, not just with Luke Lover, but Sally remembers coming to her mom's house, and she was just like, you could tell she was exhausted. She was on the couch and she was telling her daughter people at the school were being mean to her. There were some teachers that were throwing around accusations that Marion was touching some of the boys. And that really hurt Marion, and it shocked Sally. And so Sally could tell that her mom was just down and that she needed to spend the night with her. Like, she remembers seeing her mom, like, sleeping on the couch with her, like, her palms up, and just, you could see the exhaustion on her face. And then in 1996 as well, she went home for Christmas to see her mom and her dad, and her sisters remember there was a big fight between her and her mom, and there was something said about, like, plates being broken during this time. It was said that Marion wasn't her mom's favorite.
So Marion was fighting with her parents?
Yes.
During Christmas time?
Yes. In 1996.
And
so,
Marion and her mom would fight sometimes?
Just in that instance. They had a nickname for her because she really loved love, and she had male partners in 3 marriages that they called her Mary Marion. And Marion didn't like that.
That's so rude.
So that was, again, Christmas in 1996. So you've got the stress of the school. Well, she was seeing somebody, but it didn't work out. And the whole thing with the teachers.
Yeah, that just baffles me.
Yeah.
That's a big accusation.
There's something that came out about it with Sally. Somebody called her and was like, is this your mom? Is this your place? And it was like a picture of where her mom took her 2 kids to the beach. And Sally was like, who are you? And he was like, I'm with this group of boys who banded together because somebody was touching people at that school. And Sally just was freaking out about it because she got sick to her stomach. She was like, there's no way. It's been said that the person that was accusing Marion of touching kids was the one touching kids.
Oh, whatever teacher this was?
Yeah, he was touching kids. And at the beginning of the year, she was just talking to her daughter about wanting to go on vacation and just get away from it all. She abruptly said, I'm going to go on vacation for a year in London. And Sally was very supportive of it. She was like, go overseas. Like, she always talked about going to see the Orient Express. She was like, I'm going to do this. In a matter of weeks, she sold her house that she bought originally for $180,000. She sold it for a loss at $165,000. Put all of her stuff in storage, gave some to her daughter, had some stored at her daughter's boyfriend's parents' house. And then for her car, she gave Sally her car, and then she told Sally, you sell your car and then just give me the money for that and we'll call it. So when I'm over there, just do that. She had gone to the school board, renewed her teaching license, but did send in her resignation letter. That was the middle of the school year, so that was a little surprising for people. This is all happening May. She gets a new passport and she's gone by June. There are some things that start to happen during this time. Originally, Sally told her that she could stay with her after she sold her house, because there was a time when she sold her house to when she was leaving. There was a few weeks there. She ended up staying with an old friend and an old neighbor, Leslie. While they were packing up her house, though, it was her and her daughter's now husband, but at the time boyfriend, his name is Chris. He was helping her pack up, and abruptly she goes, what time is it? She goes, 8:30, and all of a sudden she just kind of got short and changed. Oh, you gotta go. And she kicked him out. He was like, okay. And so then he met up with Sally at this McDonald's. You know how, like, sometimes McDonald's are hooked up to, like, gas stations?
Gas stations, yeah.
And they would go there sometimes for dinner, especially if it was, like, a later night.
Yeah.
And he met up with Sally, and they were in the McDonald's. And he goes, your mom's rude. And she goes, what? And she kicked me out. She got really weird. And she was like, oh, you have to go. It's 8:30. And Sally was like, that's weird. But then they kind of moved on. But while they were at McDonald's, they call it petrol, by the way. So it's a petrol station.
Uh-huh.
He's looking out the window and he sees Marion pull up at the petrol station to fill her car with gas. And Marion gets out, and you can see in the car that there's a taller gentleman in the passenger seat. He goes, "Is that your mom?" And Sally looks up and she goes, "Yeah." And so they're both staring at her, waving and trying to say, "Hey, what? Hey, what's up?" And Marion can clearly see them because she just stares at him, and she has this shocked look on her face, hope. And she didn't even get any gas. She didn't get any petrol. She got back in her car and tried to drive around the building, and Sally comes out thinking, oh, she's with some gentleman she doesn't want me to know about, and she got caught. And while she's going around the building, she ends up getting stuck in the McDonald's drive-thru. So then Sally comes up closer to the car, and she's mouthing, "You got sprung," I think it's an Australian, "You got caught." Marion just looked shocked. And she gets out and she gets through and she drives away. And Sally's like, what the heck is going on? So then she talks to her mom about it, and she goes, "Oh, I was just with a friend, somebody who wanted, I was leaving, they wanted to take me out for a drink." Marion doesn't drink. She never has.
Do we know who he is?
Taller gentleman, with a little bit dark, his head was almost to the roof.
Why would she say that he wanted to take her for a drink if she doesn't drink?
Sally ended up letting it go because she was like, my mom's probably just not ready to talk about this gentleman. And then another thing that happened was she told Sally that Sally was like, "Well, why don't you just spend the night here?" And she was like, no, I'm going to spend the night over at Leslie's. And so then Sally was like, "Well, I need your help with something." So she called Leslie to talk to her mom. And Leslie was like, "She told me she was staying with you."
And different night?
Different night. And so, Sally was like, "Oh, that's weird."
And where's my mom?
Yeah, and Leslie never brought it up to Marion because she was like, "You're a grown woman, you're only staying in my house for a few weeks."
Yeah.
And I don't think Sally ever brought it up to her either. Now we're getting up to a couple days before she leaves. Sally ends up getting engaged to Chris. Marion's happy for them and wants to celebrate their engagement. And then during that engagement party, she goes to the engagement party. Sally's like, "Well, can you talk to Luke, lover?" Because there was a chapel at the school that Sally wanted to get married in. Marion asks him, and he says yes. So that's actually where she got married, was in that chapel. June 22nd. And that's when she leaves. And a lot of people have offered to drive Marion to the airport. Her daughter offered to drive her sister, and she told him no. She goes I'm good. Leslie drove her to the bus port, and she took the bus to the airport. She said that she didn't want Sally to drive her because she knew she was gonna cry. The night before, they had a dinner, and Sally just remembers her mom being really sad. They took a picture that night. Looking back at the picture, she could tell she was, sad. She gets to the airport and she leaves. During this entire time, she's sending everybody postcards, sending her sister's postcards, Sally postcards, Owen, kids at the school, sending them postcards. That was late June, all of July. During that time, Chris and Sally had gone skiing someplace in Australia. There was a huge avalanche where they were skiing. They weren't a part of it. They ended up staying at somebody else's house that night. Word got back about that avalanche to her mom, Marion. August 1st, she called Sally and was making sure that they were okay. She left a message for him. So then August 2nd, she calls Sally again from a payphone, and Sally could tell it was overseas because there's when you call from overseas, you can hear it on the phone and you can tell. So Sally knew she was calling from overseas. And then she knew she was calling from a payphone because the phone kept dropping. She kept having to put money in and recall her. She just asked about the landslide, told her about everything, how, she was having tea with these ladies and she was having a great time in Tunbridge. So much so that she's probably going to push back her Orient Express trip because she was supposed to go on the Orient Express. So she pushed that and she was going to stay in Tunbridge a little bit longer. And that was August 2nd. And then the phone call ended because she ran out of money. That was the last time Sally ever talked to her mom. Was that phone call.
August 1st of 1997? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so she did tell her sister, and she did tell Sally over the phone. She goes, "I'm just going to enjoy my vacation, so I'm going to not be sending postcards as much." And Sally was like, "Absolutely, it's your vacation. You don't have to be sending us all these postcards and things like that. Enjoy your holiday."
Yeah.
And she told her sisters before she left, she goes, "I'm not going to be contacting anybody for a little bit." And her sister said the same thing. She was at the vacation. Some time went on, and Sally realized middle of October, well, nobody's heard anything from Mom. So, You know, and you have to remember it's 97, so it's not like we had phones like we do now where you can call and text and all that stuff. And so then she was like, well, she's going to message Owen on his birthday, which was October 18th. Sally contacted Owen and his girlfriend at the time on October 19th and was like, well, did you hear from Mom? And he said no. And that raised a big red flag for her because she was like, his mom would have called Owen. So then she is starting to panic a bit. She called where her mom banked just to see if there was any activity on there. The woman was like, I can't give you any information, I'm sorry, which is bank protocols. But then she was just like, I haven't heard from her. And and she goes, did you say your mom's overseas? And she goes, yes. And so then this lady was like, I'm going to tell you things. Please don't tell anybody I told you this. There's $5,000 getting taken out of your mom's account every single day for like 3 weeks in September. Sally's like, what?
Nobody raised the alarm that $5,000?
$5,000 is a cap. So you can, anything above $5,000, you need like a bank manager to come over. And it like, they ask you, and I've worked at a bank for a little bit. So they ask you, why are you taking this money out? Making sure it's not like criminal activity. But $5,000 is the cap, and it can go unnoticed even in today. Today it's a little harder because we have electronic systems and things like that, so it's a little bit easier to do this in the 90s. But if you did it from like bank, if you went to different branches, and it was like this money was pulled from different branches.
Oh, they wouldn't be able to notice.
Yeah, they don't communicate. And so October 22nd, she went straight to the police, and she was like, "This is what's happening. Like something's wrong with my mom."
Yeah.
This is where it starts to get messy because the police drop the ball. They mark Sally went there with the intentions of marking her mom as a missing person, reporting her as a missing person.
Right.
They didn't file the report as a missing person. They marked it as an occurrence.
Is that like the equivalent to just like a police report?
Yeah, kind of. Like they didn't think she was missing.
Did they tell Sally that like, oh no, we're not gonna do that?
No. They call Sally back a couple days later saying that they contacted Marion. She doesn't want anybody to know where she's at. She's alive. She's fine. She doesn't want to contact her family.
What? So they got a hold of her, but
Weird.
None of her family can get a hold of her?
But it's later found out in like 2007, they never saw Marion. It was supposed to be a phone call. And that phone call was never recorded in their records. So if you go back, there's no record of that phone call or who made it.
Wait, so you're telling me that the police department called Sally and told her, yeah, we saw your mom, she's good, basically.
Well, not that they saw her, but that they contacted her. But I found out in another part of the podcast that they contacted the bank who contacted Marion. And so they contacted the bank to see if Marion, like where Marion was pulling her stuff out of. Mm-hmm. And on regard of like a security guard there in Ashmore. And this one's in Ashmore because she was pulling out of multiple branches in Byron Bay and Ashmore and things like that.
She personally was, or whoever's pulling this $5,000?
Either she was or whoever under her name was.
And we don't know that yet.
It's found out that they contacted a security guard at the Ashmore Bank who said that Marion was, alive, but didn't want anybody to know where she was. And we later find out from the manager at that bank, they don't have a security guard. It was later found out because they were questioned. Why was this marked as an occurrence? Where was this phone call made? There was no record of that phone call. And there was no record of them calling Sally to tell her that. The police didn't investigate this at all. When the Colonial Bank merged with Commonwealth, all of the records during that time were lost. In 2007, when another investigator took over, and then again in 2019, there was no records for them to pull anymore. Sally told her dad that, and in December of 1997...
Stuart.
No, Sally didn't tell her dad. Sally told Marion's dad, Sally's grandfather,
dad. Okay.
That's what the police said. And Marion's dad was like, not good enough. So he contacted the Salvation Army Missing People's Unit. It cost like $35 for them to do the tracing and everything. He paid it. There was this woman, her name was Betty Brown, and she contacted the dad back and was like, we're going to look into this. They contact him back And they said Marion does not want to be contacted. But it's found out...
Did they called him, or they sent him a letter? Or?
It's found out that they contacted the police, who told them the same thing they told Sally, and that was good enough for them because it's the police. So that's what they told them. And at that point, her dad was like, okay, well, clearly she doesn't want to be contacted. And so while this is going on, like, her sisters are just like, well, she doesn't want to be contacted. Like, people just kind of believed it. And Sally was, like, the only person who was like, no, this isn't right. So Sally never gave up. At some point during that time, it was also mentioned that Marion had stated, I'm starting on a new life, don't contact me, and tell Sally I'm mad about the car money. Because Sally ended up not sending the car money because at that time she was like, do I put that money in her account if somebody else is pulling that money out? She wasn't sure what to do, and ultimately the grandfather was like, you keep that money. With Marion still missing, Sally goes on to get married, and Marion's not there. She has kids, and Marion's not there. Then in 2002, Marion's dad dies, and then in 2002, her son Owen ended up taking his life. And again, Marion wasn't there.
And she never reached out to anyone?
No, there was nothing.
Radio silence.
The last time Sally ever talked to her was August 1st.
Of 97.
Of 97.
And this is now 2002?
Yeah. Sally ended up having 3 kids, and Marion wasn't there for any of it. And so Sally, like, during this time, is still trying to figure out what happened to her mom, but also trying to, like, live her life.
In 2002 alone, it's been 5 years. She was supposed to go on, what, a 1-year vacation? 2-year vacation?
Well, she had mentioned that, like, she goes, if I find a job over here, I'm gonna let you know and send my stuff. Like, send the stuff that I put in storage over here.
And all of her stuff is still in Australia.
No. That's the other thing. 2003, Sally reached out to the Salvation Army again, trying to get them to find her.
Yeah.
And from then to 2006, there was just nothing. Like, they couldn't find anything. They did more research, nothing. And then in 2007, she contacted the Australian police. And she was like, my mom's been missing. The woman that was in charge was like, well, let's make her this week's, like, the missing person. Because they have a whole week dedicated to missing people in Australia.
Okay.
So she was going to make Marion the face of that, or Sally the face of that. During that.
talk about her mom.
But they had to get in contact with the New South, like the Byron Bay Police Department, because they were the ones who were heading that case. And the Byron Bay Police Department said, no, it like, you can't do that because it's interfering with an ongoing investigation. And they tell Sally that they can't do that, and Sally's like, what?
What ongoing investigation?
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was no investigation.
Right.
So when did she go from not missing and they didn't want to do anything about it to now she's not allowed to be portrayed in newspapers because it's an ongoing investigation?
My understanding is that they were like, well, this is a woman who doesn't want to be contacted, so she's not missing, so she can't be a part of the missing persons, and, like, this is our case. It's later found out, like, in the inquest that the person who took Sally's report wrote it down as an occurrence, which, to meet the criteria of somebody who's missing, she should have been reported missing. But this person reported her as an occurrence. The AFP started asking the New South Wales Department who spoke to Sally in 1997. And so they started messaging back and forth, AFP and the New South Wales. The New South Police Department claimed that Sally was looking for a scapegoat, somebody to blame it on.
What?
They didn't specifically say scapegoat. I wrote that. But essentially, they were trying to be like, it's not her fault. You know, because AFP was asking questions like, who contacted Sally in 1997? Then they had said that somebody had contacted Marion in, like, the last few months.
From their police department?
Supposedly. And then during this, New South were making inappropriate comments and trying to say they're fixing what AFP had done. During all this, Facebook is now a thing.
Right.
And so Sally created a Facebook page about Marion being missing, and somebody had saw it, and they were, like, looking for her in the missing persons list. And this is when Sally found out that Marion was not on the missing persons list. She contacted the AFP again, and they found out that she had never been on the list. AFP contacted New South, tried to figure out what was going on. All they said was that she can't be on the list for reasons regarding the case. For reasons we can't tell you, she can't be on that list. And so then she had them change her mom to a missing person from an occurrence. And I want to let you know, like, Byron Bay is like a tourist place. Like, Chris Hemsworth lives there. People vacation there. It's on a beachside front. In 2011, a new detective gets put on the case, and he found 5 new things. He found out that in May of 1997, Marion had gotten a new passport under the name Florabella Natalia Marion Remical. Completely out of the blue. He finds that out in May. He finds out, remember, she called her daughter in August 1st of 1997? The passport with Florabella on it came back to Australia August 2nd. So on August 1st, she's telling Sally that she's going to push off the Orient Express. She's having such a great time in Tunbridge. And then by August 2nd, her, either Marion or somebody with her passport, is back in Australia.
So when she left originally on the 22nd of June, she left as Florabella?
With that passport, yeah.
And then...
And she left on the Tokyo airline.
So she left as Florabella, stayed over there for July, and everything was fine. And then talked to her August 1st, and then never talked to Sally again. But the last thing that she spoke about was that she was having such a great time, she wasn't going to leave. And then her passport leaves and comes back to Australia?
Mm-hmm. And not only that, he finds her Medicare card was used on August 13th near Byron Bay, all of that area in Grafton, at an optometrist. So for her eyes, which made sense because before Marion left, she had a freckle on her eye that she was really concerned about. So somebody using her Medicare card saw an optometrist August 13th. And they did contact that optometrist. He doesn't remember just because it was years ago. This could have been happening.
Yeah, I was going to say, that makes me so sad because if they would have done their jobs, and like, I'm not trying to place blame, but like, it's such an overall sad situation because like, if they would have just inquired into this just a little more and like made her a missing person and like actually checked some things, like from the sounds of it, Mr. Detective of 2011, it didn't take him very long to figure this out. So
No.
if they would have right away in October, when she tried in 1997, when Sally tried to report her missing, they would have done some research. It would have been fresh in the optometrist's mind.
There are things that came out in the inquest that changed a lot of her family members' minds of like, oh, she didn't just leave. Because everybody, like, it got to a point where Marion's sisters were getting upset with Sally that she was still investigating this.
It's so heartbreaking because I just can't imagine every corner that Sally turned to. It was just either a lie or a deflection or like not whoever's problem. And like she just wanted to find her mom.
That Florabella passport came back to the United States. And not only did it come back, it was marked that she was married and she was a housewife living in Luxembourg. And it also stated that she was willing to be there for 3 days. So it was supposed to be like a quick trip and then come back. That passport never left.
Ever.
Yeah. And he also found out that in 1997, there was never a contact from them.
Mr. Detective of 2011 figures out that they did lie. Like, they never actually talked to her.
Yes. Remember, in 2007, she was finally marked missing.
Yeah.
Gary had taken her off the missing persons.
The detective? Why?
Because it's later found out in like 2019 that you're either missing or you're not, and she technically should have been put in the missing, but because he was looking at all the evidence. She sold her house, she changed her name, she left, she came back, didn't tell anybody. She was technically not missing.
In his mind, she didn't meet the criteria.
Kind of. He later admits that was the wrong decision. So in 2019, this podcast, the Lady Vanishes, started. And without this podcast, they would not have found what they did. There was a woman named Joni. She is a strong woman. We love her. She does some investigating because she's like, Remical, Like, why that name? And through her investigation...
And did Sally hire her?
No,
or she just wanted to look into her?
She was listening to the podcast, and they were explaining the story of what's happened and what was found in 2011 and what was happening in 2007. They were going over all of it.
So Joni was like, I'm on it.
Yeah, so she pulled some records, and she found a man named Ferdinand Remical. And there's only 100 people named Remical in, like, the whole world. It's not a very common name. And there was one person in Australia. They actually go in 2019 and knock on his door. He doesn't speak any English. He did not seem happy that they were there. He did not want to talk to them, and he didn't. It was found later on, another person, because of the podcast, they found an ad that was taken out in 1994 in Australia, where it was the man looking for a wife, like looking for companionship, and it was marked MF Remical. And then another person looked into it. They went to, like, the local library and they looked into it. They found the phone number that was listed there with that ad was also associated with a coin business. And from there, they found a man and a woman that owned the business named Frederick and Diane Hedeberry. Frederick Hedeberry, also known as Fernand Remical, also known as Rich Richards, also known as Willie Wooters, and 50 other aliases.
So this Fernand guy is actually like his...
No, there's Fernand Remical, the soccer player.
Okay.
He didn't do anything to Marion. He didn't
even know Marion.
No. We're gonna stick to his name that they've been using and he uses in the inquest, Rick Blum. Or Blum.
Willie Wooter, Rich Richards, Frederick Hedeberry, and Rick Blum are all the same person.
And Richard Lloyd Westbury. He had 50 different aliases.
Why?
He's a con man.
Did he legally change his name to all these things? Or was
Sometimes.
Was he just going by these names?
No, so with Fernand Remical, he got a driver's license in 1990 with that name. I want you to know that he's like a cliche, narcissistic, lying POS.
So he knew Marion, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he met Marion, he was going by Remical.
Supposedly. He said she called him Rich, or Rick. And that's not the first time. To give you a little backstory, Rick Blum was born in 1939, and his dad, his last name was Hedeberry. But his dad died in the war. So his mom remarried a man with the last name Wooters, and they named him Willie Wooters. And he had two other brothers that went by
his real legal name is Willie Wooters.
Yes.
Okay.
But then he changed it multiple times, but eventually he changed it to Frederick Hedeberry because that was supposedly his dad's name. In Europe alone, he was arrested almost all of the 70s for theft, fraud, all the con man things you can think of. He was arrested for it multiple times in Europe. He had 3 ex-wives before he met his 4th, and she didn't know about those ex-wives until this came out. Her name was Diane Hedeberry. At the time when they met, he was going by Frederick Hedeberry. She took that last name. Rick Blum, they found him because of that ad that he had posted in 1994. And now he goes back and forth. He says that Marion had put out a post looking for a partner in like 1997, and he responded to that, and that's how they started talking. But he also said that they had an affair in the 1960s when she was with her first husband, Johnny Warren. So remember I told you that she went to she went on tour with him sometimes? He said that they met in a hotel in Switzerland. They did the dates, and she was kind of there at that time, and he was supposedly there at that time. Now, the affair cannot be proven. And so then he answered her ad, didn't know who she was until then, and then later on during the inquest that she answered his ad. And supposedly they had only gone out a couple of times in the early months of 1997. They had broke it off after a couple of days because he was married with Diane and had kids, and he felt bad for cheating, and she was seeing somebody else, supposedly. But she felt comfortable enough with him to ask if she could store some really expensive china with him. And he held it for her for like a week, and then she showed up at his house with a very admiral-looking man. It was a taller gentleman. He was in a blue suit with a white hat and had gold brass. He looked like a sailor or like a pilot. And they had come to his house and picked up that stuff right before she left for Europe.
And that's confirmed?
No.
Okay, this is what he says.
That's what he says. He says a lot of things. She left June 22nd, 1997 for Europe. He left June 17th, 1997 for Europe.
For Europe.
And he always flew the Tokyo route. And he came back to Australia July 31st, 1997. And Florabella came back August 2nd, 1997. Coincidences. He was in Europe visiting his cousin, supposedly. All this stuff starts coming out about him. There were two women, Jeanette and Janet. One was in 1998, the other was in like 1999. They came forward. Jeanette was a French lady and Janet was an English lady. One was from Europe and the other one was from Australia. The French lady was living in Australia. But Jeanette was first. Jeanette was in 1998. She had met Rick Bloom because she had put an ad out and he had answered it. And I think
was this like a thing in the 90s?
Yeah.
Like people did that?
Yeah.
Okay.
At that point, he was going as Frederick Hedeberry. They never had a sexual relationship, but he needed a place to stay when he was in Australia because he said that he was from Europe. Him and his wife lived in Australia.
So he was just lying.
Yeah.
Conning again.
And she lets him stay because she owned a daycare, but she had like this separate house, like a pool house almost, but not pool. And she let him stay there from time to time. Never locked anything, so he kind of came and went, and they got to know each other. Well, eventually he starts to tell her about like wanting to start a business with her. A coin business. He's really into coins this entire time. And actual Hedeberry, like they own a coin business, so he's actually into coins. Again, they didn't have a sexual relationship, but somehow she said it was like a lapse in judgment. She let him take pictures of her nude, and then he used that to blackmail her essentially. He made a business proposal. She gave him her card to start this business. He took $30,000. For a printer, supposedly. Some sort of like object like that.
Okay.
And it never showed up. He tried to get her to sell her house. And she refused because her business was out of her house. She had a daycare. Yeah. And then he ended up taking nude photos of her and using it as blackmail.
What did he want?
Money.
More money.
Yeah.
More than the $30,000.
Right, and to try and get her to sell the house. And he threatened to, like, put garbage on her lawn so she couldn't have a daycare business and all this stuff. She ended up filing a charge against him. And that was in 1998. What sounds similar in that case to Marion's?
The house. Especially if they already knew each other.
Other women said that they wanted to start a new life with him and travel and start a business, and then this woman...
That's what he wanted.
Right. And that's, like, he would always come to these women and say that.
So that was his main con, was putting out an ad, finding a woman, or responding to an ad, finding a woman, trying to woo them, getting them to start a business with him, wanting them to sell their house, and then leaving them in the dust.
Basically, yeah. There was another British woman in 1999 that met a man named Rick West, and then again as Rich Richards, and later as Rich Westbury. But they met in Europe, and he said that he didn't have any kids, he doesn't drink, he wanted her to change her name. She ended up giving him the deed to her house, and like her papers, like all these important papers, and jewelry. And
why?
Because they were going to start a life in Australia.
Oh, they were like together.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And so they had a relationship.
And he was like, I'm going to get this all taken care of.
And he wanted to start a business with her, same thing. And so he's like, we'll put your jewelry in this tube, this black tube, and we'll bury it that way, you know, because we're going to be gone for a bit traveling. They were going to travel first. And then we'll come back, and that way if the house gets broken into, they're not going to steal your valuables. While they're traveling, he ends up being in Australia or somewhere without her, but he had all of her papers. And then he calls her up and he's like, I just got beaten up and robbed, so I lost all of your papers. And she's like, oh no, oh gosh, okay. And he's like, I'm not going to be there for another like, they took my passport, so I'm not going to be there for a while. And so then she was supposed to go visit her cousin. She ended up coming back to her house early, and there's like a long driveway up to her house. She ended up seeing Rick, or Richard, or whatever he was going by, walking up the driveway. And he was walking just fine. It had only been a couple of days, and he said that he wasn't going to be there for a while because he lost his passport. He has to get a new one. And when he saw her at the house, he looked startled. He comes up with like this excuse of why he's there, and that, you know, he was in the hospital for a couple of days, but he's fine now.
How'd he get a passport? Liar.
Right. And she's like, well, where's the deed to my house and all this stuff? He ends up giving the deed back to her. He was like, the police found it and gave it back. Okay. But all the other stuff, her passport and everything like that, is still missing. Okay, so she puts it in this filing cabinet and didn't lock it because at this point she still trusted him. Sometime later, when she didn't trust him anymore, she needed to change something about the house because of all these things that were missing. She went to go to the filing cabinet to get the deed, and it was gone. And so it all started making a little bit more sense. She thankfully kind of got away without losing her house, but then she also went to go dig up that tube that he buried. Gone. Clearly this is a pattern. There were more women that came out. In 2005, this woman, Alexandra, talked about her mother-in-law and how they were like scared for her. They'd never met him before, and her mom was like, well, this is one of his aliases, let's call him Rick Bloom this time, and we're gonna move to Australia together and live a happy life. Her family's like, whoa. So they're having dinner. Slowly it comes out that he wanted her to not tell anybody in her life that they were moving to Australia until after they moved. She's proud of her kids, she loves her kids. She goes like, no, we're gonna have this dinner. So he reluctantly agreed to have this dinner, and the entire time Alexandra described him as like cold. They remember a phone call that their mom was making before they left because he really wanted her to get checked out before they go to Australia to go to the doctor, which isn't uncommon. If you're traveling overseas, you want to get checked out by your doctor. But during that phone call, he was very adamant about her getting a liver test, like testing her liver, like to the point where he mentioned it and she didn't say anything. She was still talking to the doctor, and then he like mentioned it again, but sternly, and was like upset. And they thought that was weird, but that's the first time that they saw him like kind of angry, like he had a different side to him. And then one of the other things is, during that dinner, he mentioned a bunch of weird stuff about like the war he was in and how he was like a prisoner of war because he had like this limp. Rick Bloom, the actual person, he was on pension from an injury. So you have a pattern of a man conning women by saying, start a business with me, give me your money, trust me, sell your house, let's go travel for a bit, change your hair color and get a liver test.
And your name.
And change your name. Like, he's asked multiple girls to change their name, change their hair color, and don't tell your families about this. We'll tell them after.
Red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag.
But does that sound kind of familiar with...
That sounds exactly like her story, yeah.
It was found out that in May, right before she left, Marion had a liver test done.
This is screaming Rick Bloom had something to do with this, all over it.
Alexandra, she had mentioned that he is interested in poison, and he always has been. Like, poison, he knows a lot of facts about poison and what it can do to the body. And then when they were packing stuff up, he was sending this chest to Australia, and she wanted to put like her kids' photos in there and things like that. And he goes, no, you can buy new books and things like that. We can put that in a bag. This chest has to be for valuables. So put your valuables, put like all your antiques and stuff in here. While they're going through all of her stuff, they find a book about poison, and it says poison, how to poison somebody and have it go undetected in the body or something like that. She had a book, and he was very interested in that book. He like held it up and he wanted that book. He was very interested in it. And it was mentioned in the podcast that arsenic has an effect on the liver in the body. He ends up leaving before her for, I can't remember the reason, but he was supposed to return and he never did. So she went to the police to try and report him missing, and during this time she kind of knew what they were about to say, and they're like, you gave this man all your money. You had only known him for a couple weeks and now he's gone. Thankfully, she got out of it before she left with him to Australia. And that was in 2005. All these women were after Marion. The same thing happened to Marion. She sold her house for a loss, all in a couple weeks. And he admitted to seeing her right before she left. They happened to be in Europe at the same time. Do you remember the name Remical? Rick learned of the Remical name through a woman named Monique. Monique was the soccer player, the actual Fernand Remical's ex-wife. They had like a relationship. He had told Monique at some point that he said, these hands have killed before. And to kill with hands, you must be a real killer. Do you remember how I told you
I have chills. That's gross.
His third wife died at 31. They found her in her car, slumped over the steering wheel. She died of something with her heart. Well, arsenic also affects the heart. It affects the head and the heart. Poison, that's what it does. She and Rick divorced or was separated, and she moved to Australia. He followed her there. She moved to Australia and started a relationship with another man, and he followed her there. You have a woman named Marion that loved love and wanted to be loved and wanted that relationship and had 3 marriages. And, you know, up at that point, her family, they called her Marion, and she didn't like it. And she was having a terrible time at school, and which was being accused of awful things. Her kids are grown, and she's stressed, and she's, you know, she liked this man, but he didn't reciprocate feelings. She dated the groundskeeper at the school, or the maintenance guy, and, you know, that didn't work out. And now you have Rick Blum, who's this con man, who finds these vulnerable
preys on women,
divorced,
exactly in these situations.
Divorced women, like women who put out ads, women looking for love. Like, he preyed on them, and every woman said he was a liar, and he knew how to lie. He knew how to con you and make you trust him. And supposedly they had a relationship, and from 1996, when she had that fight with her mom, to May, she sold her house for a loss. In May, she got her name changed, and she got a liver test done. And then they were in Europe at the same time. Then she moved back, and somebody was taking money out of her account. I also want to correct something, because it was found out in the inquest that $5,000 wasn't taken out of her account every single day. It was $500, which is the max you can take out of an ATM on her card. That was taken out for about 3.5 weeks. But then, on October 15th, $80,000 was transferred from Marion's bank account to an overseas bank account.
Whose bank account?
They don't know. But that had to have been Marion, because
you need to confirm who you are.
Yes.
So she was still alive
in October 15th of 1997.
But then she didn't call her son on his birthday.
Maybe she couldn't, because she had already transferred the money. She had another account in Europe that had about $14,000 in it. It was never touched. It has never been touched. It's still sitting there. $14,000 is still just sitting there. One last thing I wanted to let you know is, you remember how he was taking that woman's, you know, jewelry and stuff, and he told that woman to put her stuff, her antiques and stuff, into this chest. And I told you how Marion loved antiques, and she had original paintings and first edition books and china, expensive china, things like that. She gave some to her kids, and had some stored, and so she stored it with people she trusted, meaning she thought she was going to see them again. She stored it with her daughter's husband's parents, but she put a lot of it in this storage bin, or this storage container. Well, they went to that storage container and it was empty. All of her stuff was gone. They remember seeing a van that loaded it up. It was like a brown van with a gold thing, and they remembered the name, but that went out of business. So, again, if the police had done this stuff in 1997,
they would have known so much more.
They would have known so much more. So I will say this. There is a lot of stuff that I didn't get to go over. A lot of stuff that I might have jumbled up because I tend to go fast, and this is a very large case. So I highly recommend you check out the Lady Vanishes podcast, because they have interviews, and during the inquest, they're not allowed to record, or they're not allowed to show the recordings of the inquest. So they have actors that voice the people and what they said, so you can hear what was said in the inquest, and you can be just as frustrated with Rick Blum as I was. And go check out the Missing Matter podcast as well, because they matter. Marion matters. These people matter. Sally has done what a daughter should do, and then some. With the decision. So the result is Marion Barter is deceased after October 15th, 1997. There is no known cause or known time or location. They don't have her body. So they just know the last time Marion would have been alive was October 15th, when that wire transfer of $80,000 was made to that overseas bank account. They recommend the police take on her case as now a homicide, and to my knowledge, it has been marked a homicide. They want to charge Blum for false information, lying on the stand. They know he was lying. It's very obvious. But again, an inquest is not a criminal thing, so they can't charge, but they are recommending that he be charged. In 2021, during the inquest, they had finally put some money towards the case. They had $250,000 for anybody that has any known information about Marion, her whereabouts, what happened to her. It is now $500,000 for anybody that has any information. DNA has been uploaded thanks to Sally. She has given DNA to try and match if remains are found for Marion. The coroner, her name is Teresa O'Sullivan, and she says, based on his knowledge of, like, having done this, you know, making people sell their homes, change their names, not tell their family anything. That's why nobody knew about the mysterious man in Marion's car.
It's the presumption it was him.
Yeah. And she is recommending the police do an actual investigation. He knows something. Marion, because this is who this podcast is about. It's not about Rick. Marion was a light. Being a teacher, in and of itself, you're a light. You guide people. Being a teacher like she was a really strong light. And, I mean, Sally's never given up, so that shows what kind of mom she was. And she was eccentric. She wore her heart on her sleeve. She was a mom. She was a teacher. She was a friend. She was a godmother. She was a lover of designer clothes and antiques and art and music. She was a person. Is a person. And she deserves justice. And I hope when people discuss cases like this, even if it was as hectic as I did, it starts a conversation so that police do better. Because if half that work was done in 1997, who knows where Sally could be now, where this case could be now, if it wasn't marked as an occurrence, if it didn't sit dormant for 10 years. And that's the point of this podcast, is not only to celebrate the life of who Marion was and who these people are that we're going to be discussing, but to talk about it and get people to talk about it, get people to think about it, so that, you know, it doesn't happen. Another case isn't marked an occurrence. So now we're going to kind of go over Sally and her mission. On October 5th, Sally let us know, is a walk day. It's for missing people. You're supposed to wear green, and that's why we're wearing green now. They wore green at the inquest when they found out the results, so it means something to Sally. You're supposed to wear green and grab your family and friends and go for a walk. This is, again, on October 5th. And then you're gonna take a picture and you want to upload it. You're gonna put the hashtag the missing matter, and this is supposed to be a remembrance walk for everybody that is missing, including Marion. The other thing we want to talk about is Sally is starting a project here, or has started a project here, and it's taking off. It is the Green Seat Project. And so you can learn more about that. She talks about it on her Instagram, and that's just Sally Leydon. And you can also find it on Facebook. And in there, she links a bunch of stuff for like YouTube and the Missing Matter podcast, the Lady Vanishes Podcast. And so you can go on her Instagram and show support there. we called ourselves, or we're calling ourselves, Before the Candle Goes Out podcast, because again, our whole point of this is to not only remember who Marion was and who these people are that have an unsolved case, but to bring awareness to you guys. And so we're doing that to celebrate them and to remember them and to hopefully fight for a little bit more justice for them. Each episode, when we talk about a person and their unsolved case, we're going to do it on their birthday. We're going to film on their birthday, hopefully upload on their birthday so you can also celebrate on their birthday. This is for Marion Barter, a mom, a teacher, an eccentric, wonderful woman.
Happy birthday, Marion.